So just want to start with a big thank you to Keith and Oliver and Christy and Stephanie. I mean, they really have, along with a few other people in the room, have really pushed forward this whole space, and we have a lot to, that we owe to them. I think actually, I met a few people in the space because of Lifespan.io. Then I met Keith and Oliver. I think Oki, he was in here earlier, I don't know if he's still in here, was one of the first things that I donated to on Lifespan.io, a project he was doing. That's how I met Aubrey, because I think I went and visited Oki at Aubrey's lab in Mountain View. And so, yeah, kind of goes all the way around. And then Carl, I don't know if he's in the audience. Yeah, there he is. Another person that's really helped me in the space. He reminded me that I should probably talk about Humanity, which is my company, before I go into talking about the World Health Federation, the idea. So I'll give you a quick update on what we're doing. So Humanity is an app that allows you to monitor your rate of aging and then guides you to slow it down. We spent a lot of time at the Buck Institute and doing, hanging out with other people in the Valley, and basically started to understand that we should use our skills, me and my co-founder's skills, to help the space. And the thing that we knew how to do is we knew how to get millions of people to join an app and keep using it. Super simple, that was our skill. I started, for better or for worse, depending on what your experience has been. I started Badoo, which kind of started that whole dating app, thing that the world has now. And then I was out in the Valley. I was running what became the largest consumer VPN in the world, with 900 million users around the world getting to a free internet, an uncensored internet. And that's when I started meeting a lot of people in the space. One of the people, it's actually been a really cool lineup, because met Steve. We probably live in the simulation because my fraternity brother in college was Bobby Brook, who's working with Steve. And then I met Kristen, who's Eric's co-founder, and she really turned me on to the idea that eventually became Humanity, which is that we can look at longitudinal data sets and we can start making predictive models. Me and Pete had a lot of success early in our careers, and then we realized that none of that was really worth anything, because Pete's dad had a stroke out of the blue. I had a couple people close to me find out stage 4 about cancer. And as I think everybody in the room probably has understood, and that's why you're here, is that if we don't have our health, we don't have anything. And that's why we started to look at, hey, we got to do something more important with our skills, and that's why we joined the space. Our mission as Humanity is to add 1 billion years of health back to humans by the end of the decade. We've done about 55,000 years, according to some of the models. For our users so far, we have 160,000 users using the app. We're just on iOS right now. Sorry, Android users, I'm one of you too. But yeah, we're going to be on Android soon as well. And I think one of the really powerful things that Keith started in his talk yesterday was, why is that the mission? Is because, 1 second, 1 life. Every time person's dying. And even before that, I think someone was talking earlier, the suffering, I think it was Stephanie, the suffering that a lot of people, a lot of our loved ones right now are having because of aging. It's just very clear that this needs to be something we get rid of. So let's start on the positive. Start with hugs, then go negative, then go positive. So we've proven that we can, with Humanity, our hypothesis was super simple. We're consumer app folks. Hey, if you give a feedback loop and you give enough little dopamine hits, little gamification, people will change their behavior. I'm here to tell you that it works. We've had sustained behavior change, a median change of about 15.4%. We can actually see a lot of these things before the person joins the app. So that yellow line is basically when they join the app. Because of Apple Health Kit, where we're pulling kind of historic movement patterns and sleep patterns and others, we can actually see what they did before the app, and we can see afterwards. And that's how we know that it's actually a change of behavior and it's sustained. Another thing, and now Lucia, who did this chart, now works with Eric and team. And so another thing is that different things and different combination of things make each of us healthier. We're not the same. We are special snowflakes, or at least we're generally in cohorts. And so this chart is basically showing the impact on biological age, the multivariant impact on biological age across different cohorts. This is early data, but on about 160,000 users. And so you can see there's a difference. It's basically normalized to older females with a BMI less than 25. You can see how they're different than every other cohort that's on there. And then a plug. We're now the #1 longevity app in the store, #1 AI health, #1 health span. Going with the decentralized science and kind of decentralizing this whole thing, we're going to do a crowd raise starting in private phase in a few weeks, and then in September public, to allow really anybody to become an owner of humanity. And so look out for that, or grab me and I can give you more information. So now, and thanks again, Carl, for telling me I should give an update on the company. Now getting to the data side of things and how we can all collaborate. So even if you disagree slightly with this statement, maybe I would invite you to kind of suspend disbelief. And if you adamantly agree with it, I agree with you. All the data already exists on servers around the world, health data, that can answer all the questions that we have in this room and that we have in all the other rooms about health. It's not a question of producing more data. It's about how do we actually start opening up this data and actually maximizing the impact and answering all the really important questions that we have. And I think the other thing that we need to remember is that lack of access to that data is killing people. It's killing people. So we need to open it up. So one of the things when me and Pete started building out humanity and we started meeting up with, great researchers, is that we really started to realize when, we got a little bit more friendly and they started telling us, how did you, get to the kind of the big breakthroughs that you got to, is that they really spent 90% of their time collecting data. One of the first people, and Steve might be unhappy that he let us take this picture in the first place, one of the first people we were talking to, he was telling us, and really one of the greatness that is, what Steve has done, is that he was so good at kind of scouring around and collecting all these DNA methylation samples and really bringing that data together. And then obviously the second part, creating the models, but the first part was actually going out and getting that data. And you can see how important I thought that meeting was that day and how excited I was. I'm wearing, you might not be able to exactly see it, I'm wearing the Lucky Ducky socks that my daughter gave me because I was very excited about the meeting. And we had a great time. And then yesterday, and sorry, I'm not going to hit everybody's talk yesterday, but you saw, Morten was giving us, this kind of background on like how all these amazing things that he did and is doing when he got access to a bunch of data, about 30 million, health samples. We had Todd talk to us about like one of the greatest things that DeSci can do is actually get us more data, open that up so we can get higher fidelity findings. Vadim, and rightly called out by a bunch of people, have done some amazing work, and Madi on his team. And one of the things they understand, just like everybody else, and definitely that I understand, is that we need to actually start collaborating and getting more data and actually standardizing that. And that's one of the ways that we're going to accelerate the entire field. And if someone like Vadim that has like 10,000 other really important projects going on is spending time on this, that it's really important. And so a shout out to Laura and one of my friends, Helene. What we always, I cringe a little bit when I hear gold standard when we talk about clinical trial, but I understand the methodology is decent. But, we forgot 50%, the gold standard got rid of 50% of the population. And when we start talking about like women's health, we're like, oh, we got to go out and start collecting more data. The data's there, we need to open up that data. And Laura was talking about that yesterday. One of the greatest things that Athena DAO will do is they'll start getting more of that data, opening it up, in getting more health research based on female health. So this will get not very technical, but I just want to give you an idea of what we're proposing, and it's not just us, it's a few other large groups, is we can actually open up that data, we can make that data more secure, more private, because anonymization really needs quotation marks around it most of the time. We can make the data more private and open it up for research. And so, just as an example, so there's Humanity. We have 160,000 users feeding us a bunch of data on a daily basis. We have my friend Helene's company, Wild.ai, that focuses on female sports performance. And we got you in this room, if you're doing research, the data that you're creating, right? And so what we're saying is, keep it all where it is. Don't open it up. Keep it behind a firewall. Keep it super private. What we can do, though, is we can create synthetic data. And synthetic data is not anonymized data. It's not pseudonymized. It's actually fake data. But it's using, and I'll show in a second, it's actually using all the relationships between all the variables and creating these fake users from real user data. But the next thing you can do is you can start opening up that data, and all of us can start training our models across all the different data. And so this shows the people opening up the synthetic data, doing the federating modeling, but really what we want to do is open it up to anybody with an internet connection. And so just to give you, you don't know me so well, you don't know Humanity so well, or maybe you do, but just recently I was actually quite excited because we came across, there's a project that Google's doing called EHR Safe, which basically is doing exactly what we started to do, probably slightly better with a couple different methods. So, we'll probably, collaborate on that. And so what you do is you do the first stuff that you would do for anonymization. You de-identify it, you do a few things. You might maybe aggregate it slightly. And then you basically auto-encode it. And so you come up with some latent space. Sorry, I'm using some technical words, probably as far technical as I can go as well. And then what you're doing is you're creating, you're feeding complete noise into a GAN, which is a general adversarial network. You're feeding complete noise into it, and the GAN is, on the discriminator side, is trying to, figure out when it's getting closer and closer to something that looked like the original data, right? And the last step of that is you're doing some differential privacy and some other steps to just make sure that that synthetic data, that fake data that you created, is in no way connected to the original data. And so I showed this not to go through the step-by-step of how to do it, but more that this is an established practice that's now out there and people have accepted it. And I think the next part is much more important, is we can no longer say that synthetic data is not useful. They've proven, and many people have now proven, that when you train a model on synthetic data, gone through it, that's gone through a good process, you separately train it on the real data, you get to basically the same answer. So you train a model to figure out whether it's a biological aging model or something like that. If you do the synthetic data right, it is completely not the original data. That's completely private, and you get the same answer. This might be the first time you're hearing about this, but this is the future of how data will not leave the original data custodian. We will create synthetic data. That's how we're going to do it. And so I had to honor, when I was doing that consumer VPN, this is actually one of the coolest days of my life, I got to hang out with Tim Berners-Lee. And so for those that don't know, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. He did not invent the internet. And so when we went around and we were fighting for net neutrality, this is 2018, and everybody wants a photo op with Tim. I can tell you some really surreal stories, like me, Tim, Nancy Pelosi in a small room, very, very weird stuff. But the cool thing is I got to hear Tim repeatedly answer the question that most people asked him was, what do you think the impact of your invention was? And the thing that he repeated over and over and over again was, first of all, he would always correct them, I did not invent the internet. What I did is I made the internet reachable and usable by the 5 billion people that were on Earth then, right? That was the impact. What we know today as the internet was not going to be the internet. It was going to be this amazing technology that some institutions, some government institutions, some universities were going to use. It was going to be a great way to pass data. They were doing great work, and it was going to be great. The unfortunate thing was it wasn't going to be completely opened up to 5 billion people. The impact that we saw from the internet is because it was opened up to 5 billion people. No matter how smart we are, no matter how smart any of us, and we've got some really amazingly smart people in this room, which is cool, we are not going to be able to reach the impact that 8 billion people can. And so that's the importance of opening up the data to everybody. How am I doing for time? Yeah. So there could be tons of business models. If anything, I'm probably the more capitalistic person in the room. Most people are in academia or close nearby. What we're saying is make the health data free. Make the access to the synthetic data completely free. Don't build a business model around that. We can build, just like we built on the internet, we can build all the business models we want, all the cool models and ways of making value for different companies on top of that data, just like we built it on top of the internet. Allow everybody access to the internet, build the businesses on top, allow everybody access to no matter what the research, it could be the dumbest research in the world. That's the person's decisions, that's training the model. So give access to the data for free, build the models on top. And so just a shout out, because we probably haven't spoken enough about decentralized science. One of the greatest things about decentralized science is, and I highlighted in blue, it increases the diversity of perspectives. We can see that, with female research, like in health research, like open up the data, and there's a lot of people that are really interested in modeling on female health data to make female health products. Give everybody access to it. And then it's more accessible for researchers and communities that generally have been kind of pushed out of the system for whatever reason, whether it be location or race or gender. And I think I'll keep it on this for a second. We now know how powerful LLMs are. And if anybody doesn't know what an LLM is, large language model, ChatGPT was built on top of it. Everybody knows what ChatGPT is, or at least has heard of it. We can sit here for the next decade knowing how great all the stuff that we're doing is. And the LLM people, a lot of them, when ChatGPT came out, they were like, we've been doing it for 10 years, 20 years, like, this is not new, this is not the best thing. We've been doing this. Yeah, but it doesn't matter if you don't get it to everybody. And ChatGPT was a simple application built on top of an LLM that got it to everybody. That's important. So I think that's it's a good example of great technology. We need to do the steps to get it to everybody. And so as Stephanie just spoke about earlier, and there's a bunch of companies behind her there, but obviously there's hundreds more in different organizations. Like collaboration is what we need right now. We're still small, although I've seen it. It's been amazing the difference that I saw when I first met, say Aubrey or Oliver or Keith. It's amazing how far we've come in the last 9 years. I was a latecomer. I've only been here for 9 years. It's been super to see that acceleration, but our collaboration is super important to bring us to the next level. Yeah, and so you can reach me at mg@humanity.email or the second I get off the stage. Yeah, and I'm open for questions. Yep. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the audience? I think you answered every question on everyone's mind.
Yeah, I got Steve.
Oh, we did. Wait. Oh, Steve.
It's not a question, just a comment. I love this idea of the synthetic data. I think it's brilliant, I think that's the way forward, because it's so frustrating to get access to data. I'm a former academic. Sometimes I had to wait for 2 years to get access to data that were funded by the NIH, where the investigators put in their grant that they will share the data, but they won't, some of them. They're good actors and bad actors, but this is really a wonderful way to leverage these resources. And it really depends also by country, So in the US, there's open access, then there are certain countries that cannot share data, and so this is a very elegant solution. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I mean, you were part of the reason why we understood how important this was, so thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Michael.
Uh-oh. Who gave him the mic?
Yeah. Just wanted to ask what the incentives would be for various organizations and academics who have very siloed data to open it up. Are there incentivization models that you can put in place that would encourage that, beyond the sort of general appeal to the greater good of humanity?
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Great question. So I think the cool thing is I'm able to speak to that kind of directly because, I mean, we'll be doing it with the humanity data. We're a company, we got investors, and so it's a very simple incentive for most of us in the beginning is we want to get access to more data. We want to push forward this initiative to open up the data so that we can get more access to data as well. We build, and almost everybody that's not a data broker builds models, builds products on top of data. We don't sell the data, even though some of us might have a slide that says, hey, the data is valuable. We mean because we can make better products from it, not because we're going to sell it. And so that's the incentive is we know we can make better products if we get access to more data, so we want to push everybody to open up the data. And that kind of goes for most of us in this room, whether we're a researcher or running a company. I think the thing, there might be people that feel like they're going to lose some advantage because of opening up the data, but we have enough people. I went around for 2 years. I actually stopped talking about it with people because the question that everybody said was, hey, I want to do it. What's the next step? And I was like, okay, I'll come back to you in a couple months. But we have enough people that already said yes to it. And now we're just going to move forward with it. And then I think the social norm will change as well, that this is just the way we deal with data. So.
Hi, I had 2 questions. Firstly, what is the fidelity of the data? I mean, you showed a graph. I didn't really know how to interpret it. But specifically, when you need a machine learning model to give an output which is very precise, right? So what fidelity is it there right now? And secondly, if the data is not normalized, or maybe normalized is the wrong word, but let's say one person is contributing data which has epigenetic data, and one person is contributing data which is blood-based biomarkers, and somebody is contributing a third kind of data, let's say health data, right? Is there a way to, are there techniques being built or exist today to be able to combine insights from all data sets?
Yeah, 2 great questions. To the first question, so I mean, the one chart that I showed was from the Google, EHR Safe team. What I have seen in the space, so you asked for the fidelity of it, what I have seen in the space that honestly, it's moving so fast, like every 6 months, anything that was like, we're not sure if we can make it work better, it's 10 times better. Like it's traveling really fast at the moment, so I think the fidelity will not be a problem from what I've seen of the speed of increase. What was the second question? It was?
Combining different types of data.
Yeah. So our actual proposed structure of this is that even the synthetic data doesn't really go too far. It stays with the original data custodian. And so what you end up having, and this is the decentralized nature of it, what you end up having is that you have these nodes, these decentralized nodes of these synthetic data sets. And so if you do encounter, say, you're not combining them into a centralized place. So that answers your question. But the cool thing about that is that if you do encounter, there will be metadata that you know which nodes you're training your model on. If you do say, hey, if you ran it through this autoencoder process, or if you maybe slightly tweak the GAN the way that you set it up, I think we would end up with synthetic data that would be more usable for our particular use case. You can actually ping the node or the company or the organization and say and request it, right? And so that's the great thing about keeping it with the original data custodian.
We have one more question.
As an LLM guy, I got to reinforce what you're saying, because right now, as both a customer of OpenAI and a competitor with OpenAI, the open source community is really at war with these major monopolistic corporations. And right now, open source is sort of striking back, but there is such rapid attempt for regulatory capture, for monopolization, and for their centralization of economies of scale, that there's really a threat to the freedom of this technology. So I can't just agree more with how important this is, because we need an incentive structure in open source to have, micro monetization and incentivize small players to contribute to open source and contribute to an open community. Because if we don't, in 2 or 3 years, this will be completely buttoned up by the major 3 or 4 tech giants.
Yep. Yeah, thank you for saying so. I think, yeah, there's no way for some of us to escape having to spend some time in DC every year. I think the incentives, I'm more optimistic. I think the incentives are quite strong for enough of us to continually keep things at some level of open source. I think social norms are actually a very strong thing as well. But yeah, I agree that it's something that is pivotal to this continuing to go in a good direction, so we need to pay attention to it.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.